Hey, this is Jim McDonald. Welcome to episode 225 of the PowerCast. This episode was not originally designed to be an episode of the PowerCast. It was originally supposed to be an interview for Mark's channel with Lewis Howes, and it turned into such a great piece that we decided that the best way to use it would be on the PowerCast. So I am not in this episode except for the beginning and the end, and it's a great conversation between Mark and Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes podcast, The School of Greatness, is a top 100 podcast. He's helped lots of entrepreneurs flesh out their social media and figure out their strategies. He's been very frank on his show about all sorts of things that have happened in his life, his ups and downs, his struggles. This guy was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He has created himself. And I think the thing that we've learned about people who have created themselves that we've had on the show is that they never stop creating themselves. So anyway, enjoy this episode. There's a great deal to get from it. Like and share. I'll be back at the end just briefly with sponsor shoutouts. Later. Support for this episode of the PowerCast comes from Precision Nutrition, home of the world's top nutrition coaches. Head over to get.pn/PowerCast for a free nutrition course, especially for PowerCast listeners, focusing on the role of carbs. That's get.pn/PowerCast. Reebok.com, home of the Legacy Lifting Shoe, the official shoe of the PowerCast. 8-Man Apparel at 8manstrong.com. Compex Muscle Stim products at CompexUSA.com. Use the code PowerCast for an additional 28% off all but the lowest price model. HowMuchYouBench.net. Use the code PowerCast for 15% off slingshots and free shipping on orders over $100. And bodybuilding.com, the world's largest fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com has free plans for every level. Visit bodybuilding.com today to become your best self.
Recorded live in Los Angeles, California, this is Mark Bell's PowerCast. Here's your host, Mark Bell.
Pretty good, Is this going really good?
Is the slingshot the main product you have that you sell? So like actual equipment?
Yeah, so the thing that you're using is called the hip circle.
Yeah.
And the slingshot is a supportive upper body device for bench press and push-ups and stuff like that. And that still is our #1 bestseller, the original
bench press
slingshot.
One.
Yeah.
It's like a bigger wrap, essentially.
Yeah. It literally, the invention is it's 2 knee wraps that were sewn together that go up over your arms, go on your biceps, and it's for, to assist with push-ups and bench press. And for me, it was, I tore my pec several times.
Oh, that's the worst.
And so, having that injury, I was like, how do I train like through and around? How do I, how do I keep training? Basically, was the question.
Right.
And then so I started playing with different ideas. At the time, I was a competitive lifter, wearing a bench shirt to compete. And I was like, bench shirts they look ridiculous. It looks like a straight jacket. The thing is just insanely tight, and it's expensive and looks weird. But like, no one would ever wear something like this in a gym.
Right.
So I was like, well, how do I get your average person to, not your average person necessarily, but the guy that has been bench pressing for years, the guy that I always hear the stories from, oh, I used to bench 315, or I used to bench 4 plates, and how do I get them to not have to say that anymore? Right. That was the whole mission. That was the whole. Yeah, that was the whole plan. It's like, how do I, and then even for myself, I'm like, I don't want to fucking end up like that. I want to still be able to lift and still be able to enjoy myself. And so that's what the product is made for. And then there's just I don't know, there's so many SKUs after that, because knee sleeves, elbow sleeves, and
wrist wraps.
Everything hurts at a certain point, right? The longer you do it, the longer shit starts to hurt. So you're a competitive athlete as well, so you got to be banged up a little bit yourself.
Yeah, I had surgery on my wrist,
bumps and bruises,
hip. I broke 3 ribs back-to-back seasons playing football, so like these ribs kind of stick out, and shoulder mobility. I tore both my AC joints. Sprained ankles a bunch of times. Fingers are jammed in helmets and stuff. So
looking at the back of this book, your new book here. it kind of it must skip over a good chunk of your life because it's a summary of your life, and it kind of skips from you having trouble in school.
Yep.
To you wavering around for a little bit after athletics were over. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, boom, he fucking has a School of Greatness.
Right.
And it has 30 million downloads on the podcast. Right. And then you have Ray Lewis and Tony Robbins and all kinds of awesome people on the show. So how did some of that, I know that things don't happen overnight, so how did some of that build up?
Yeah, this year is actually the 10-year anniversary of me getting injured and having surgery on my wrist playing arena football.
It's always a decade. I say it all the time.
10 years. And 2007, August is when I got surgery. So for the next 2 years after that, I was really kind of in denial. I was like, I'm going to heal up in like 2 months. Like, surgery's no big deal. I'm going to go back and play next season. And I had this big arm cast on that was from here to here for 6 months like this.
Your arm was just stuck that way.
Like this for 6 months.
Truckers driving by.
Exactly. And every 4 to 6 weeks, I'd go to a checkup at the hospital. They'd cut it off and put on a new cast or whatever. And I was like, so we're good, right? We don't need to put it. Yeah. And they're like, no, you need another 6 weeks. Another 6 weeks. It was just like, so I was getting out of shape. My arm strength was bad. I couldn't even move my wrist because they took a bone out of my hip, put it into my wrist. So it just took 6 months in the cast, finally got it off. It was another year of just like trying to get it to open up, trying to get the range of motion back, and I'm still very
over and
still very limited, and it was just a painful. That's as far back as it goes.
It's about me too.
And it was just like, okay, it was a 2-year journey where I was living on my sister's couch, trying to figure out, how to recover and heal first, and switch my mindset from, okay, I'm not playing football anymore. What am I going to do now? I didn't graduate yet.
Right.
Because I left early to go play.
You're just thinking it's all going to work out.
Football.
You're going to be in the NFL.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
I work my way up. It's going to happen. It's my dream.
You're a receiver. You're taller than everybody. It's just going to happen.
And it just didn't happen. So 2 years of this, like on my sister's couch, I started reaching out to mentors. I started using LinkedIn a lot early on and just connecting with successful people.
Right.
And asking them, how did they get to where they were?
So you were just looking at successful people, and those were like kind of your mentors via the internet.
That's it. And then I would find local business leaders who were kind of like the successful people in Columbus, Ohio, and ask them if I could, go to coffee or whatever, meet with them, and just ask them some questions about how they got to where they were. I realized early on when I'd ask people for advice, no one wanted to give it to me. But when I started asking people, how they got to where they were, they wanted to share their story.
Yeah.
It's a difference. Like, you get the same result.
Huge difference,
by saying, I'm so impressed with like the success you've had. I'd love to hear the story how you did it. As opposed to, I'm down and out. Can you tell me what I should be doing? Like, no one wants to give advice, but they want to share how they did it.
Well, and also specifically talking about business can sometimes be weird. Unless we were doing like something that was very similar, but similar enough to still be different enough to where we're not competitive, right? Like then it would be easy to share. Oh, I do this online. Oh, I do that online. I use Shopify, or I do this or that. Like those things are kind of easy to share, but especially with somebody coming at you that you don't really know.
Exactly. Some stranger.
Like, I'm not really
He's got a big cast on, And so that led to doing some kind of like mentorships with some local leaders. I had like 3 key mentors that I sought out. One was a extremely talented professional speaker and an author that I met, because I started going to Toastmasters every single week because I knew that I needed to master.
Somebody's still in the flow of things nowadays, or?
Toastmasters not anymore, but I went every week for a year because I was terrified of speaking in front of any audience. Couldn't do it. I was just terrified.
Right.
And I
have the same background.
Yeah, and so for this time when I was like on my sister's couch, I was like, what can I do to overcome all these fears of mine, so that I actually have some skills as opposed to just using football as my only talent. So I was like, I'm going to master as many skills as possible. I started salsa dancing, public speaking, playing guitar. I was just like learning social media, marketing. I was like, I'm going to master these things.
Has that been part of your personality since the time you were a kid? You didn't mind, like, so you were...
I mean, first it was sports, like mastering every sport.
Shy in one way, but didn't mind, like, getting in front of people and doing some stuff, but not necessarily speaking, maybe?
Speaking, I just felt like I was never smart enough. Never had anything interesting to say.
Right.
And so
Then you realize neither does anybody else.
Exactly, yeah. But the art of speaking and getting your message across is one of the most powerful skills that any human can have.
Insane.
if you can communicate your idea and enroll and inspire others to take action on something, you can literally change the world around you or the world. You know, every politician, they have to learn how to communicate in order to get their idea across.
Right.
Every coach of a team has to enroll its athletes and the team and the staff to be like, this is our vision. Yeah, you got to get people to buy in. Every leader of a company, it's like, if you can't communicate effectively, you're going to lose people and your idea is going to suffer. So I remember feeling like I need to learn how to master this, otherwise I'm not going to be good at anything. And that was the first fear to overcome. Every single week I trained on public speaking, and it was a nightmare. I was horrible. But I had a mentor who I would study. I would watch essentially game film of him speaking. I'd watch game film of myself speaking every week, just try to get a little bit better, prove on something. And these mentors, I had another mentor who was a famous inventor. Actually, he invented about 100 different products that he brought to market.
That's awesome.
So I was going to trade shows with him and learning networking and building relationships. I was learning marketing and design. I was learning packaging. I was learning,
that's cool,
you know, how to get on the phone with different media and get them to buy into promoting these products. I was just doing it all for about another year and a half with him.
What do you think the greatest thing you learned from somebody like that is? Like, what did you see? Like, there's things that I see from people where I'm like, the thing that always clicks with me is that it's hard for everybody. That's what always clicks with me the most. I'm like, holy shit! Like, I don't know if you saw the Dr. Dre HBO special that just went up recently.
It was amazing.
It's fucking unbelievable. But they're sitting there and they're talking about making Dre beats.
Yeah.
And they have a conversation about it. They call Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs says, you're out of your mind. You shouldn't get into hardware. You get your asses kicked. And they're like, fuck it, we're going to try anyway. So they try, but they're met with tons of resistance. These are multi-millionaires. These are the strongest players in the game. And it took them a very long time to collaborate and to finally make a product. And then the coolest thing is they bring it back to Apple later and they sell Dre Beats.
It's crazy. $3 billion, right? 3.1 billion or something.
It's the biggest deal that Apple's biggest thing they've ever purchased, period. But I think, you know, my take-home message from that was, okay, I get it. I can't say, hey, you guys take care of this, or you guys take care of that. It's got to be hard for me as well. It's a process, right?
The biggest lesson I learned from that mentor, his name's Chris Hawker. He said, there's no $1 million idea, because so many people would come to him and be like, I've got the next $1 million idea as an inventor. And he was like, there's no $1 million idea, only $1 million executions. And I think watching the Dr. Dre, Jimmy Iovine documentary, it's like they executed for years.
Right.
Like even Eminem in that documentary was like, if I had to wear another thing of Beats by Dre, headphones at like 6 a.m. in the morning when filming, he was like, we got to shoot another shot with the headphones on. He was like, I didn't understand it, and it was annoying and frustrating, and I think you're going to piss people off along the journey sometimes. So you got to learn the dance of the relationships, but they were committed, and they were like, it's going to be in every video of our artists, and every friend of ours is going to wear one, every athlete, and it's not going to miss a scene, you know? So I think they executed their idea brilliantly, and because the idea of like these headphones, sure, it's a great idea, right? But who cares if you can't execute in the long term?
Yeah, I say execute or be executed. You know, like that's the other option, because if you don't get it done, then the idea is going to die.
Yeah,
you know, that's
I think
the hard thing. Get that ball up in the air.
Yeah, Vince Lombardi said, if you're not fired with enthusiasm, you'll be fired with enthusiasm.
Right.
If you're not fired up with enthusiasm, you'll be fired with enthusiasm. So that's the key for sure.
So how did you transition some of that information and then start to apply it into your...
So during this time, I was spending 6 to 8 hours a day on LinkedIn for about 1.5 years, 2 years, while I was on my sister's couch, learning public speaking, mastering these skills. And
other people are using the internet to whack off too, and you're using it
I'm trying to be productive. Yeah, exactly.
Hooking up with each other.
Exactly. And so some of my friends and these leaders who I was reaching out to were like, man, you have a really great looking LinkedIn profile. And I see you're connected to so many powerful people that I've been trying to get connected to.
Right.
Can you help me with my profile, and can you introduce me to some of these people? I was like, sure. So I started helping all my friends how to maximize LinkedIn. And one day, one of my mentors, who wanted me to teach him as well, wrote me a $100 check afterwards, because he goes, this is going to change my business. And I was like, huh, really? Like, you'll pay me for this? This is just stuff I'm already doing. And I was like, huh, maybe I can start charging for like profile makeovers on LinkedIn. So I started doing that. And it just kind of took off quickly. Like I started helping one person, they'd be blown away.
5 years ago?
This was like, 2009. Yeah,
Okay.
so 8 years ago. Took off where I was like, okay, how can I maximize this? I learned how to like trade my time for dollars doing a one-on-one session. How can I write a book so I can get it to everyone?
Yeah.
How can I do workshops on this topic? I started doing networking events around the country. I started doing everything I could to get the same message out in multiple different packaged ways, similar to what I was learning from the inventor.
Right.
How to package your idea, how to position yourself, how to brand it, and how to promote it in different areas, get different distribution. So I was doing all this by just teaching LinkedIn. And then people were like, I need to understand Facebook and Twitter. Can you show me that? So I was like, sure, I'll figure it out. And so I started creating online courses on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, blogging, email marketing. As I was learning it, I was teaching these entrepreneurs how they could apply it to their business because they didn't know the tools yet.
Right.
And I knew a little bit more than them. I wasn't this big expert.
A simple thing of just having somebody from the outside, right, come in and say, oh, you know, your School of Greatness logo there doesn't match with that one, right? So this is red and that's orange. Or
Right, exactly.
Just even tiny things like that make a big difference because you're trying to have a specific message, right?
That's it. And so we did that. It was a good run for like 3 years. We were creating these online social media courses. I had a business partner at the time. And it kind of just took off. That business of selling courses. I learned about how to use webinars to get the message out to thousands of people every time, as opposed to doing local workshops. I was like, how can I reach more people? Learned about webinars, mastered that art of selling and teaching on webinars. And for the last 8 years, I've done a webinar pretty much every single week.
Oh, wow.
Because it's the most effective way that I've found to generate sales for any type of product or service, specifically online stuff. My business partner and I, we got up to making about $2.5 million a year. So I was broke, and then 2 years later, we did $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Because I was just committed to I was like, I'll do the same thing every single day, over and over if it's going to generate these sales to get me out, you know. Got my first apartment finally. I wasn't living off my sister. And I was like, I never want to go back to that place.
Right.
We had different visions, so I sold the company to him and kind of took about a year of discovery of what I wanted to do. This is back in 2011, 2012. Moved out to LA for a girl, actually, that didn't work out right away. It was like we were, you know, in love or whatever, more like in lust, and then it didn't work out fast. And I was in a dark place. I was like emotionally down. I was frustrated. Me
and my brother have a name for that. We call it Guys Got Nothing. We were a part of that club, both of us.
It's miserable, right?
For many years.
I was like just like sitting in my apartment a few blocks away when I just moved here, watching Weeds, this show Weeds, for like literally every episode for 2 weeks straight. Because I was like, I don't really want to leave. It was so like
didn't want to eat nothing, right?
Nothing, man. It was just like I didn't have the emotional awareness of how to move out of a situation like that and feel okay with myself.
Right.
So it was a lot of like self-discovery. And I remember I was driving around in LA traffic, which you guys just drove around here, and probably, you know, we're stuck at some point.
A bunch of times.
And I remember just being like, man, F this place. Like I just moved from New York City and was like thriving there. Loved it. It was like felt like I was on top of the world, and now I was at the bottom. And I was like, this place sucks. People are miserable in this traffic. Like, I just want to jump on a subway and like walk around.
Right.
And I remember looking around me in traffic and just seeing everyone stuck. We were literally stuck on the highway, not moving. People were pissed, screaming on the phone. And I was like, there's got to be a way for me to get unstuck and for people in general who are in traffic or stuck in their lives to get out of that.
Right.
What can I do to offer a solution to these individuals? And to myself, which I needed the most. And I remember thinking, this was in 2012, like podcasting was coming back around. A few of my friends had a podcast.
It's amazing that you had the insight to realize that you were actually kind of talking about yourself.
Oh, everything I do is for me first.
Yeah.
Like this book is for me to heal and learn and grow about my biggest challenges as a man.
Because you're like, look at all these fucking losers, they're all stuck.
Exactly, yeah. And
like,
look at me. Yeah.
You're just like,
So I had the awareness, like I was in a darker place. And I called a couple of my friends who had a podcast at the time. And I was like, tell me about this podcast thing. This was before it took off, before anyone was really doing it. And both of the guys
started to go on fire about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, when Serial took off.
Yeah, that one was huge.
It just attracted a massive audience to the podcasting space. And then I think there's now 500,000 podcasts out there. There's just so much content, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's got one. They're launching them every day. It's just crazy. But at the time, no one was doing it because the smartphones, they didn't have it on the smartphones yet fully. So it was kind of like you had to go to the website. It was like...
Yeah, I didn't know how to operate it. I was like, well, how do I listen to these?
And it wasn't easy to create it yet. Like you had to hook it up to the blog, to this, to that. So it was like not an easy process yet to create one. And I remember talking to them both. I was like, tell me about your podcast. Like, why are you doing it? How beneficial is it for you? Is it helping your business? And both of them were like, it's my favorite thing to do. And it's my best customers come from there. You know, it's just a blast.
Right.
I get a ton of traffic to my site from my podcast. New leads come there. And I remember just like, if these guys can do it, I can figure this out.
Right.
You know? But I told myself I'm not going to listen to a single podcast because I didn't want to be influenced about how I should have it. And came up with the idea of the School of Greatness. Launched it a couple months later. I just started recording on my iPhone because I didn't have any equipment.
Right.
And it took off really fast. Within a few months, like it just started to take off. In the first year, it was just kind of like this thing. It was just like this growing, living thing that people found and loved and shared. And it wasn't until like about 2 years in that everyone started to like do their own show.
Right. What I like about what you said about that the most is that you just recorded it with your iPhone. Like, because a lot of people are they're gonna wait.
So they get the right equipment, the right this.
Yeah, I need to do it with a buddy, and I need to wait till his schedule clears up, and I need to. The audio's got to be, you know, this certain thing, and.
I mean, my first episodes you can hear like they're on my iPhone in a gym, like with
echoing and weird.
Yeah, tons of like people opening doors. There was like slamming of weights in the background. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic, and I got it done.
Right.
And I've always said that like done and good is better than perfect and never done.
Right.
And so I will always put something.
Point. Very simple but effective.
Yeah, I will always put something out there that isn't fully ready, because I want to see if people actually are ready for it.
Right.
I don't need it to be perfect. I need to see that people are interested enough that they're going to sign up, listen, buy. Then I'll invest in the design even more. Then I'll invest in like upgrading the equipment. Then I'll invest in all of the team. But let me see if people actually like it and want it first.
Right.
As opposed to spending, you know, a year developing a new product and the tooling and the manufacturing and the design. It's like, let me jimmy rig a couple of knee straps together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And use it myself, and then give it to 4 of my buddies who can't do bench press.
Exactly how it went.
And when they're like, sew me one of these and make me one, okay, now I've got something.
Right.
As opposed to, I'm not going to tell anyone about this until it's perfect, till the logo's perfect, the packaging. Like, let me just make them together and.
Well, even now, I mean, just to be totally transparent, I don't create perfect products. Mm-hmm. Put them out there. I know what the issue may be with them. I put them out there, and because sometimes you have to make a decision, just get them out. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to always be the picture you have on the front, like, oh, I wish I was smiling a little different.
Perfect.
Like, you gotta get it going, right? It's got to be out, right? And then maybe you change something later, or maybe you make a 2.0 version of the book and add other thoughts to it, or whatever.
Yeah, iPhone wasn't perfect when it first came out.
Right.
And every time, it's never been perfect.
Right.
There's always something that could be better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my approach, is like, let me get it. If I have an idea and I see a need in or a challenge in the marketplace, and I want to get it out as fast as possible. Otherwise, if I wait, it'll never happen.
How do those ideas hit you? You know, because it sounds like you're, especially for the last 8 years, sounds like you had your head down the whole time. So how are you able to kind of like, you know, see what's in front of you and see the horizon as well?
I think I'm always asking questions. And one of the reasons...
Were you like that as a kid?
I've always been curious.
Were you that little kid asking a million questions?
Always asking questions. I'm always curious of why something is the way it is and how it could be better, and why it wasn't done a certain way. Why someone believes in something in a certain way, why I grew up, you know, going to church, and what was the purpose. So I just always want to know the purpose of something. And is it benefiting me on my vision to the highest level of execution, or is there something that could be benefiting me in a better way?
Right.
That's just the way I'm looking at things. And so for me, I'm always thinking of like the podcast. I just remember feeling like doing research on it and learning about podcasting. I was like, this thing is going to blow up in a few years. Like the podcast world.
Yeah.
just with the technology of the phones,
Right.
being in the cars, like it's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. And I wanted to be in early before it happened, as opposed to kind of land rush when it was happening. I just wanted to separate myself. So I was like, I'm willing to invest in delayed gratification.
Right.
As an athlete, you learn to do that.
Yeah, it's gonna take time.
When you were skinny, I'm assuming at one point you were skinny and you were like, I want to be, yeah. You know, but when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I was like, I want to be an All-American football player in college. So I needed to wait 13 years. And every single month I had to develop myself. Like I grew another inch. I need to get faster. I need to have these milestones. It didn't happen in a year.
There's some great things that happen when you're young because you don't understand any of that. But as an adult, I think that's why a lot of people are probably stuck.
Yeah.
Is because they don't, it seems like the journey that they're about to go on is too long.
And I can wait.
You know
like,
what I mean?
I have big dreams and I'm like, if it takes me 10 years, it takes me 10 years.
Right.
Like, because I have fun along the journey. Like, I celebrate these smaller wins along the way.
I heard somebody the other day say like I'll be happy if I just lose like 10 pounds over the next like 2-3 years. And I was like, that's a fucking great perspective. It wasn't somebody who was, who needed to lose a lot of weight. I was like, that's a fucking great attitude.
Yeah.
I wish more people kind of just thought like, I'm just going to chip away at this thing and I'm not going to like go on some crazy diet, not eat any food.
Mm-hmm. And then go back and gain it all back. Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's just been like, I'm so committed to my vision and I delay gratification as much as I can because I have so much happening that I find fulfillment in all these little moments every day. Right. It's just fun. The journey's fun.
Yeah.
And I like seeing things come full circle. Like if I have this big idea, I like to see like, 8 years later, I remember 10 years ago having the idea to write a New York Times bestseller. I could barely read and write at the time. I didn't have a college degree. I almost flunked out of English in high school. And I read the 4-Hour Work Week and I closed it up and I was like,
old Tim Ferriss to the rescue.
This was when I was in my cast. It was 2007 Christmas. And I only got one gift.
Hi, Tim.
Yeah, exactly. I only got one present that year because we did like Secret Santa or whatever with my family. Yeah. And my brother gave me the book. It wasn't even wrapped. He just said, here's your gift.
Yeah.
And it was the greatest gift I ever received because I never thought about entrepreneurship in that way or how to make money in that way. I just thought about football before that. This was literally a couple months after getting surgery. And it just opened me up to thinking differently about what was possible online.
Yeah.
I didn't apply the 4-Hour Work Week necessarily.
Right.
But like the ideas and some of the resources, like I dove
the information
into.
There was crazy. And then,
Powerful.
and then you have like, you have Crush It.
Was great too.
From Gary Vee, and that was
it was great too. The mentality.
I mean, he was predicting things that are like unfolding right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's big companies that are talking about like getting off TV and doing more stuff with like Facebook because Facebook has a bigger audience. These are all things that he, in some weird way, maybe not directly, but predicted in his book. And it's but what you just said about it opening your mind. Where for some reason you had a condensed version of who Lewis Howes should be.
I just wasn't aware of what else was possible.
Right.
Because I was so committed to one thing. And so when that happened, it just opened me up to thinking like, wow. I said one day I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. I don't know how it's going to happen.
Right.
But I want to write a book that inspires people the way this book inspired me in this moment when I was down and out and didn't know the direction I needed to go. I want to create something like that gives people a direction.
Right.
And 8 years later, I wrote a New York Times bestseller. But it was like month after month, I would go into Barnes & Noble every month, sometimes every week, and visualize my book on the front cover right there when you walk into Barnes & Noble.
That's great.
And I would research from all of the stuff that I learned about from the inventions. I would study every title and cover that was on the front kind of stack in Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, like, how does that work?
Yeah, I was just like, what makes me want to look at what? I would just like study it. Why were those words powerful for me? Why did I want to pick this up and read the back? Why did I buy this?
Right.
I would analyze and question every book cover. And I was like, what could be better? Then I was interviewing all these New York Times bestsellers and breaking down, reverse engineering their entire launch campaigns. Every one of them that I could connect with, I would learn and ask them questions, what worked, what didn't work.
Right.
Because I knew that products don't sell just because they're great products. There are a lot of average products that sell a ton because of the branding, the marketing, and the positioning.
Products that suck, that do really well.
Yeah. The branding, the marketing, the positioning, the copy, like all these things play into account. So I was just like a student of understanding marketing, branding, positioning, perception, everything. I just wanted to consume as much as I could from these experts.
Right.
And the timing was right. I built my podcast. I built the audience over a few years. I actually got Tim Ferriss's agent to work with me on the first book. And I just like, if I would have done it a year earlier, I wouldn't have gotten the same results.
Right.
So it took 8 years. It took me being ready. And another lesson my mentor told me, he said, money will come to you when you're ready for it.
Right.
And I remember when I was like broke, I was like, I'm pretty ready for this. You know, I'm pretty ready to make money though.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm like poor and broke. And he was like, just trust me, it'll come to you when you're ready for it. And later, it made a lot of sense because I probably would have blown it or not known how to invest it. I would have not taken care of it because I wasn't ready. Emotionally.
You can't really chase it,
Yeah, and so.
And if it's handed to you, that's a much different result as well.
I think the same thing. Like the sales will come to you when you're ready for it. When you've like positioned yourself, when you're emotionally ready, you've done your reps. Like you've got to know your stuff.
Right.
You can't just squat 500 pounds when you haven't been doing the reps for 20 years.
It's 1,080.
You can't put 500 on as a warm-up set.
There you go.
When I can't even do 425 right now, So, it's just been a process, kind of like, for me, I'm constantly trying to master skills so that I have like momentum, confidence, tools in my belt that I can whip out at any time and just use for anything that comes my way.
Are you driven more by frustration from when you were young or more by positivity?
For 25 years, I was driven to prove people wrong. And it was some of the most powerful fuel I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I achieved almost everything I ever wanted in those 25 years, all the big dreams and goals I had, but was left feeling so angry, resentful, and unfulfilled within moments after I achieved them.
Right.
And I didn't understand why I was feeling so like something was missing until I finally started to go on a journey with this book 4 years ago about tapping into the stuff that was holding me back my entire life, like the emotional wounds, the trauma, the sexual abuse I went through. My brother was in prison for 4.5 years when I was 8, so I'd visited him in the visiting room at a prison every weekend. Just, being dyslexic, not being able to read and write, being, bullied, and just like a number of events that just continue to build up where I was like, I'm going to prove people wrong. Like, I'm going to be the greatest athlete. I'm going to be this. I'm going to achieve that. I'm going to achieve this. It was the most powerful fuel, but it was unsustainable and it was constantly hurting me inside.
Right.
So 4 years ago, when I finally started to forgive everyone for anything that ever happened to me.
Right.
And forgive myself for everything that I'd done and done to myself for others.
It's almost like you went to rehab through
the
writing of these books.
No, I started going to a lot of different workshops and doing therapy with a lot of different experts and just trying to be like, I need help, Emotionally, I was allowing people to trigger me. I was getting defensive a lot. I was getting in fights and I was like, why?
Right.
It's like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, what the fuck am I doing?
Exactly. I got in a fight at the basketball court 4 years ago where I pummeled a guy to where I couldn't recognize his face.
Jesus.
And I was just like raging. Yeah. And I was like, why?
Yeah, what is that about?
Zero stakes pickup basketball game in the tough streets of West Hollywood. It's like, this is unacceptable for me as a man, as a human.
Right.
And so I started to really dive into like letting go of all these things that were holding me back and realized, man, there's a lot of men that I grew up with who don't have the awareness to let these things go, or they don't know how to. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to connect with themselves emotionally. They just don't know how to share things that are holding them back for whatever reason. We wear these different masks, right? And I still wear them today. I'm not perfect, but I'm much more aware of these things that hold me back, and I'm quicker to let them go and move forward from like a loving, supportive place. So now I'm driven more to lift others up and really be an inspiration to myself as opposed to being number one and everyone else being second place, which was my whole life. Like I needed to be right, they needed to be wrong. I needed to win, which meant they needed to lose.
Well, it's a little cliche sometimes, but there is like that one person that comes up to you and like stops you for a second. They're like, I really appreciate you. And you're like, oh, yeah, thanks. And they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, you changed my life. Like those are the people, those are the reasons why you probably did a lot of these things, you know, but you probably didn't realize it until you started going down that path, because that kind of shit makes you feel great.
Absolutely.
That kind of stuff gives you a lot of fuel rather than being fueled by anger or fueled by...
It's a different type of fuel.
Right.
The anger and the, resentment.
Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. Yoda.
Exactly.
He fucking knew.
Suffering, man.
Yoda, he knew what's up.
But I tell you what, you can get an amazing workout angry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've had some of the best workouts. Like,
you can get a lot of
fire.
A lot of energy.
A lot, but it's just not sustainable, and it's not fulfilling inside.
It's not great when it's actually negative. Like if it's something to draw upon. My brother, oldest brother, died years ago, and it's like I can use some of that as like fuel, but even that's like dangerous, because like I might lose my fucking concentration, and then what happens? If I'm trying to lift a big weight or something like that.
You gotta hurt yourself.
Right.
Bad.
Yeah.
We are so easily convinced to ignore our mortality, that by taking certain actions, living certain ways, avoiding certain things, we can prolong our certain demise indefinitely. When we turn that blind eye, when we place our trust in these fad ideas of health and immortality, what a tremendous disservice we do to ourselves. Without that stark realization of an end that is coming, you cannot live a life with the urgency it warrants. Nor can you appreciate the shortness of time that you have to do all the things you dream. If you fool yourself into believing you can go on forever through certain actions of lifestyle, you fail to ever start to live. There is nothing dark about facing the brevity of the time we have here. Because in truth, the only way to fully experience all life has to give you is to first accept that you are mortal. 8manstrong.com, apparel for people who lift heavy weights.
Excuse me. We talk a lot about diet and stuff on the show. Lately, we've been talking a lot about keto. When people ask you about keto, like when you feel comfortable, like that you're giving them great information?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I think the main thing with any nutritional advice is for me, I just always try to make sure I'm not stepping out of my boundaries.
Right.
I'm not talking about stuff that I don't know about. And so for me, luckily, I've had a lot of experience with keto and been doing it since high school, on and off. So I have enough knowledge that I can refer people to specific things. But when it comes to exact calories and kind of precision of it, that's where I could use a little help.
Well, today's sponsor, Precision Nutrition, is the industry's most respected gold standard for both nutrition education and nutrition coaching. Consultants to companies like Apple, Equinox, UFC, and Titleist, and athletes like the newest US Open champion, Sloane Stephens. I didn't realize that until I just read it right now. They've created something special and brand new for PowerCast listeners today, all about low-carb and ketogenic diets.
There you go.
When you visit get.pn/PowerCast, you get access to a hot-off-the-press free course exploring the science behind low-carb, ketogenic, and paleo-style diets. So that's actually
I'd like to check that out myself, actually.
Yeah, there's some pretty specific differences between those things as well. It even tackles the always politically charged question, what's the best diet for you? And that's something we always sort of challenge people to find. Yeah.
Surrounding all that, right?
This course represents some of PN's best work over the last decade, as they've helped nearly 100,000 clients get their own eating on track and nearly 50,000 professionals stay on the cutting edge of the industry. So if you want to understand the science behind the low-carb diet trend and the best way of eating for you or a client, grab the free course at get.pn/PowerCast. That's get.pn/PowerCast.
Sounds good. And I've found a lot of gratification from being able to help others and stuff too. How did you come to that realization of like that is what you're excited about? Like, just people like listening to the podcast, things like that?
I mean, again, kind of like 4 years ago when I started, it was the relationship breakup, like it was the depression there, it was the fights that I was getting in, it was just like the feeling of like constant feeling alone. Even when I was achieving and people were like excited for me, I felt alone. And so it was the journey of like, okay, why? Why am I feeling this way, and why have I felt this way my entire life? And why have these accomplishments never been enough for me? Like, it's always got to be more because it's not enough. I was never able to celebrate them. And so it was just kind of the awareness first, like, all right, I need to transform my life and never come from this place anymore. What's the other place to come from? Yeah. It's to lift others up. It's to inspire other people. It's to do things because I love them, not because I'm trying to prove other people wrong. Right. And, you know, yes, I'm fueled by the comments I get and the people that come up to me on the street and they're like, I listened to your show and here's the exact thing that like changed my life. And it's amazing to know that we're making an impact. Right. You get this as well. And I think coming from a place of lifting others up through my work and the content I create is so much more rewarding than being the only person on the top of a mountain looking down at everyone and being like, I won, you know, or whatever. Like, I was right all these years. And now I'm alone, you know, and I lost all my friends and whatever.
I heard Tom Brady say something that I thought was awesome, you know, because when he was at the University of Michigan, Drew Henson always started over him, and it was always a thing. And like anytime Brady got in the game, he always did the best job he could. They usually won, and then just because Brady didn't have the same look and the same this, same that.
Wasn't the golden boy, wasn't athletic.
Yeah, the guy ahead of him was a monster, you know. And so he always had kind of a chip on his shoulder, and he didn't get drafted until the 6th round and all these different things. And obviously now he's got, you know, a handful of Super Bowl rings and everything. But I always found it interesting when they interviewed him, and he said, you know, what do you have to say to all those people that doubted you and all the teams that passed you up and everything? And he said, well, it's the greatest feeling in the world that I don't have to say anything. You know, and I just thought like, I just thought that was amazing. Cool. But, you know, I always think that the real person that you're in a battle with every single day is it ends up being a little bit like Fight Club. Like you're in a fight against yourself every day. Because every single day when you go to wake up, you immediately start talking yourself out of all the shit that you're supposed to be doing. And it happens every day. It doesn't matter how successful or what path you're on. You could be feeling awesome. You could be making millions of dollars. You could be making people really happy. But still, every day, for some reason, there's something that in the back of your mind going, oh, you should do this instead. Oh, you probably don't really need to wake up at 5. You could probably wake up at 6.
Sleeping a little longer.
You work for yourself. You know, you could do whatever you want, you know, and it's just, then your day piles up on you. You start to get kind of frustrated, but it happens all day, every day. With everything, your choice of coffee, your choice of protein shake, your choice of what are you going to eat. You know, like there's like even anxiety surrounding all that stuff, right? It's not easy to like kind of pick and choose as you go through your day to stay. To keep on the path the whole time. So it's one thing to have like motivation, but like what inspires you to kind of, you mentioned you have good patience and you have like some longevity. So like what's something that makes you hold on? Because, you know, we could have very easily given up in the early going. Oh, fuck man, only 100 people downloaded this podcast. Thing's a piece of shit. I thought I was going to take off, or only 200 people or whatever the case is, right?
So what keeps me going, or what keeps me
what
committed and focused?
Yeah, what keeps you fired up?
You know, I just think it comes back to my childhood of always wondering why I was here, like questioning, like, why am I alive? I think we've all had that question at some point, right? Like, why am I here? I remember getting in trouble a lot, right? Like, why am I here?
Yeah, what the fuck?
What's my purpose? What's my mission? And I remember when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, 2nd grade, I would go to the principal's office a lot for just acting out or just whatever.
Doing something
stupid. I just couldn't pay attention in class. I was just never interested in the books. It was hard for me to read, so I was just, you know, hyper. And they would take me to the principal's office, and I remember just saying all the time, I wish I were dead. Like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, it was just frustrating. Everything was frustrating. And I was like, I wish I were dead. And I would say this to the principal's office.
And you're like 8.
8, 9, whatever.
God, that would terrify the fuck out of me if an 8-year-old told me that.
But I just didn't feel like anyone understood me.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has felt that way, like no one understands me. No one understands what I'm thinking, what I'm going through, how challenging this is. They don't understand the kids that are making fun of me. Whatever it is, we've all felt that no one understands who I am.
Yeah, how come no one's on my side?
Exactly. And I think everyone can relate to that. And I was a big sports movie fan. Like I would just watch so many like underdog sports movies.
Rocky all day long.
Rudy, Rocky, like constantly, you know? Just love that stuff. And I think I just started to realize like I'm here. Who really knows why? Still don't know why. I like to think I'm here for a reason.
Right.
Right? But who knows? That's just like my own thoughts.
Right.
Maybe I'm here for a reason. And if I'm going to be here, I want to make the maximum impact on the maximum number of people. And what gets me so excited is that it could all be over tomorrow. Like it could be my last day today, tomorrow, a year, 100 years. I don't know. And the thing that keeps me up at night is like the thought of regretting something.
Right.
So I never want to regret that I didn't try, didn't go for it, didn't give it my best. Like I've been training for 7 years to make the Olympics with the USA Handball team. And we haven't qualified in the last 2 Olympics. You've got to win you've got to win a qualifier and win the Pan Am Games, and they only take 1 country from North and South America. So we haven't qualified since '96 actually. But the last 2 Olympics that I've been a part of, or the Olympic training camps that I've been a part of, we didn't qualify. And I'm still competing even though we haven't qualified, because I'm like, I want to at least know that I've given my all.
Yeah.
And unless I have some injury or something where I just can't do it, then at least I said, you know what? I gave 7 years of my life to something. I don't regret it. Thinking like, oh, I could have gone to the Olympics. I could have been walking out in the stadium in the opening ceremony. I could have played against other Olympians and like got a tattoo of the Olympic rings. Like, I don't want to think that way. I know that I've given my all, and that's all I can ask for inside. I want to be able to look in the mirror and be like, yes, you gave, with the talents you have, the size, your skill on any level of any sport, business, life, like you've given your all and you've done the best to make the maximum impact with your talent. And that's how I want to like live my life. It's just like, I feel like that's the way to inspire and be a ripple effect to others. Like giving your all and not regretting like, oh, I could have wrote that book, or but it was too hard. I didn't have the time. Like, I just don't want to feel that way.
How does it make you feel when you do fall short? You know, something like I heard you on the Barbell Shrug podcast. You kind of mentioning like, oh, I'm not in as good a shape as I wanted to. So you fall, you know, everyone's going to fall short somewhere.
Yeah.
You know,
of course.
So you know, what happens in those cases? Like, what's?
I think I just evaluate. Did I fully commit to something? Did I go all in? And did I give my best? And if I did, then it's okay.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to accomplish everything that I want. I'm not going to win everything. I'm not going to get everything I want. But if I gave my best with the energy I had, then it's okay. And it's a lesson, and it's something I can build upon. It's an experience that I have now that I can use for the next thing. You know, 7 years of training with the USA Handball team, I've got so many injuries, but I've had so many incredible experiences. I've traveled the world wearing USA across my chest, playing against other Olympic teams, not in the Olympics, but in tournaments outside of it. And for me, it's like, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
That's cool.
The people I've met, the experiences, who I've become in the process, what I've learned. I've played, you know, mastered a whole nother sport that I never played until I was 25, 27. And for me, it's like, yeah, I could have done something else with that time in business. Like maybe my business would be making a lot more if I had that energy towards that. But this has been a dream of mine, and I'm going to go after it, as opposed to saying when I was 80, oh, I wish I would have tried. I wonder if I could have made it.
Well, there has to be some balance. Otherwise, you're going to be tunnel vision in it, and you'll only be good at like one thing.
Yes.
You know, like somebody that puts all their time into the gym all the time, sometimes they have a hard time expanding outward from that. And somebody that puts all their time in business sometimes becomes very unhealthy.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, you know, so you kind of see.
I think if you want to be, I think if you want to be the best in the world of something, you've got to be obsessed and be unbalanced.
Right.
There's no way that you could lift 1,000 pounds without 15 years of like being an obsessed meathead. You know what I mean?
I'll show you a picture. I was very unbalanced.
Exactly. But you wouldn't have been able to do it without that.
Right.
Kobe Bryant, there's no way he would be able to be one of the best without being obsessed.
Right.
Being in the gym longer than anyone else.
Well, and for him, he kind of always had to have a chip on his shoulder. Barry Bonds was the same way. Other guys are able to play different. You know, Brett Favre seemed like he was having fun.
Yeah.
But you know, some guys have a specific mindset that they have to kind of go into.
But Brett Favre wasn't considered as the best.
No, he's not considered.
Did
the
he win a
greatest
Super Bowl?
Yeah, he won.
One? Yeah.
He's been to 2, I think, and he won.
Yeah.
He won at least 1, but.
Yeah, but it's the difference between guys that win 1 and guys that win 5.
Yeah.
Is like a whole nother level of obsession.
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
and
the
timing and the team, you know, all sorts of
Yeah,
factors. But
I'm obsessed with. I'm not a Patriot fan, but I love hearing stuff from Brady and Belichick and stuff like that. And the other thing that Brady said that I thought was awesome was, this is after he won like his 3rd Super Bowl or so, and they're like, you know, which one means the most to you? And he said the next one. It's like this guy's
he's already
got his shit together. You know what I mean?
What's he got, 5 now?
He's got 5. He's gonna be 41 or something, or 4.
Crazy, man. I'm actually friends with his manager, his like business manager. Shout out to Ben.
I think Gunner trains him a little bit here and there. Gunner Peterson.
Yeah. And his manager is actually a big fan of my podcast. He's been listening. Awesome. He's been listening for years.
That's fucking cool.
And he wanted me to interview Tom a couple of years ago. So they had me come out and watch a game, and I got to meet Tom and Giselle after a game. Awesome. And he was like, "Yeah, I really want to come on the show once the season's done and this and that." Then Deflategate kind of like came out even more, and they were like, "We're not doing any interviews."
Yeah.
So I had the date, I had the flight to go do it, and then like 2 days before, he was like, "We're gonna have to reschedule." So I've been waiting for like a year and a half to like reschedule. But he's just like a machine, man. He doesn't do many interviews. No. You got to hit the right timing. And
I've only really heard him on the radio.
I know.
Not really.
He doesn't do much.
Not really on.
He'll do a press conference after the game, but it's very like, you know, he's got his points, he's got his style. So that'd be a dream interview, I think.
That would be awesome.
Be crazy.
You mentioned going to like therapy and kind of. So what is like you physically gone to like a therapist type thing?
I've gone to a couple therapists for like a couple sessions. I want to say like a long time, but more what was the most effective for me were these emotional intelligence workshops, where I went through like a 4-month kind of experience.
Are those weird?
Very.
Like I'd imagine like the way you're describing it a little bit.
Very different.
Yeah.
And I think in order to let go of certain things,
kind of like, am I going to really do this right now? Like, there's a bunch of other people in the room. And
there was like 100 people in the room, and then I did like more trainings where there would be less and less people, so it was more and more intimate. And you do these different games, exercises, experiences. Think like Tony Robbins, but like level 100. You know, you go to his event with 10,000 people. This is like 100.
And he's all fired up. Yeah.
There's like 50 to 100 people, and it's like the deepest form of therapy I've ever had, because I've never cried so much in my life than in like this 5-day workshop.
That's
like
crazy.
every day, like just crying and bawling my eyes out. Hearing other stories from people, going through exercises, like very intimate, vulnerable exercises, doing these different games that kind of set up real life experiences, and everything is evaluating how you show up in real life. What's working in your life, what's not working, based on these exercises.
Is it hard to go to? Like you said, you're like
you spend $500 or $1,000.
No, I mean just like physically demanding. Like you're like, fuck, man, I don't know if I want to go back. Like I cried.
It's emotionally, it'll wear you down.
Make you feel like shit, kind of. Right?
If you're guarded and closed off and don't show emotion, then you'll be fine. But if you go all in, and you're like, I'm gonna look inside myself and do the real work. And even though this is like a really weird kind of exercise and game, like I'm just gonna do it anyways and see what comes up.
Right. Sounds crazy. It's like a circle of trust, like where people
For the first few days, I was like, this is fucked up. This is stupid. Like I'm not coming back.
I guess it makes some sense too, because you're with people that you've never met before and probably never see again.
Yeah. Right? But you kind of build these relationships that are like the strongest. You learn more about each other than like your family and friends know about.
Yeah, because like he and I are going to talk about certain shit, right?
Exactly.
Like
you open up in a vulnerable, like you create a safe space. Yeah. And you start to open up, and I was like, man, I've been living this way my entire life. Like I let go of so many things, and like was honest with myself for the first time on so many things.
Yeah.
And so it was a way for me to evaluate, like, okay, is this working in my life when I show up this way or not? And what are the tools and strategies that I can use when a situation like this shows up again in my life? So it was really just kind of like a mirror for how I live life, where I got to see myself in a safe environment with strangers who are going through the same shit, you know, who are going through their struggles, challenges. And it doesn't matter how successful we are, there's always something that's holding us back.
Yeah.
There's always something to get us to the next level. Even when you were lifting 800-pound squats, you're like, something's holding me back from lifting 900.
Absolutely.
Something.
Right.
It might be more time. It might be I'm not lifting the right way. It might be something.
Sleep.
Yeah, something. Yeah. So I don't know if the audio levels are bad with that. Is it okay? Okay, cool.
Somebody's vibrators.
Yeah, it's usually not the car alarm. I usually don't hear that. So
I think we're okay.
Yeah. So for me, those experiences were some of the most transformational moments of my life, because that's when for 25 years, I didn't talk about being sexually abused and raped. When I was 5, I just held it inside because I was like, if any person knew this about me,
right,
no one would love me, no one would want to be my friend. So I had this deep shame and guilt and insecurity about this experience. And all the bullying and all the stuff that I just continued to stuff in, and it's like, I'm gonna train and like never let anyone hurt me again. You know, I'm just gonna become so fast and strong and like good at my sport that everyone has to look up to me. And they're
Have you met a lot of other people in your time that have kind of reacted the same way to sexual abuse?
It's funny because
because now you're talking about it. Do people come up to you and say, I did the same fucking thing?
Yeah, I opened up about it after about a year. I started telling family and friends like one by one because I was so embarrassed and scared still. Like even though I opened up,
your parents must have been like,
yeah, it sucked. You know, it was the babysitter's son. So my mom felt horrible because she was like, I feel like I let you down. I'm like the worst mom.
I feel like throwing myself out the window right now. Yeah. You know, thinking about my own children. Like, Jesus Christ.
It's hard. You know, you feel like you know, the babysitter was a great lady, great woman, but her son, you know, was like a teenage boy that took advantage of me, and
weird.
I had no clue what was happening, and it was just like a whole experience, and you don't know. And she's working 3 jobs, trying to like pay for us, and you try to trust people, and it just happens. But the
your mom's just trying to do the right thing.
Trying to do the right thing. The challenge is 1 in 6 men have been sexually abused.
Wow.
1 in 6. But most men don't. First off, they don't talk about it.
Right.
They don't know how to talk about it. They don't know who to talk about it with. And so when I opened up about it on my podcast, which took me about 6 months to like make the decision, because all these friends and family were like, you should share this more. And I was like, fuck no, I'm not sharing this with the world. Like, hell no.
Yeah.
But I realized like, wow, why am I resistant to that?
Yeah.
Like I was just like,
well, then also you probably didn't want it to be like self-serving. Like I was like,
I'm not going to do some marketing thing. I was like, this is like a sacred conversation that needs to be done the right way if I'm doing it. Otherwise, I'm not doing it at all.
Right.
Like I don't want anyone to think I'm doing it for wrong reasons and so I asked so many people. I was like, what's the best way to do this? Should I do this? And I talked to a lot of like female kind of spirituality therapy leaders, and I was like, do you think this would be valuable, or would it be more hurtful to do this? And so I had a lot of women kind of help support me in like the launching of the conversation. Yeah. I had another friend interview me to kind of create a safe space and kind of organize it. And I posted that, and then I waited for 3 months after I recorded it because I was like still terrified. I eventually posted it, and it was the most unbelievable thing I'd ever experienced. For weeks, hundreds of emails of men and women sharing, like thanking me first off.
Yeah.
So many men who were married with kids.
It's like therapy for them. That's amazing.
So many men who were married with kids were like, my wife doesn't know this about me, and would write these essays telling me everything that happened to them.
Yeah.
Like the stories that they would share, I was just like, this isn't even in a movie.
Yeah.
Like, sure, what I went through sucked and it was horrible, but it wasn't like, I mean, men were like telling me how they were kidnapped and chained in the basement and raped over and over. It was just like the most crazy stories. I was like, I had it easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they were like, thank you for allowing me to open up and share. And I'm going to go talk to my wife, and I'm going to start, now that I've seen that you were able to talk about this, it gives me permission to share. Right. And so it was it was like, wow, okay, so many men have gone through something, whether it's sexual abuse, insecurities, feeling bullied and made fun of, feeling like they're not masculine or man enough, like constantly being questioned about their manhood.
Right.
And yet most of the men that I've grown up with or encountered like don't know how to like communicate this.
Right.
And how to feel and don't know how to forgive themselves and forgive others, and therefore they're angry, resentful, defensive, passive aggressive in their communication when they're triggered. So what if they could have tools and an understanding on how to move past that?
Right.
And that's when the research started with this book, where I was like, this is something much deeper than just like learning how to make money online. This is like life-changing. So that was kind of the process 4 years ago of like starting to do the research, starting to heal, then do the research. Then I was like, I need to write a book about this because I still need to learn how to overcome certain things. I'm not perfect still.
You're right.
So this is as much for me as it is for everyone else. And that's, yeah, I'm still on the journey, you know. Every day I'm triggered on something and I'm like, okay, is this my ego? Let me let it go. Let me move forward from a place of love and support as opposed to defensiveness.
Right.
So it's been a journey, man.
Back to the situation just for a second. I don't want to dwell on it too long.
No,
but,
it's okay.
Was that babysitter ever back again, or like was it
the babysitter? I kept going to the babysitters. I never saw the son again. Okay. Yeah, I think he was only there a few times. I mean, I was 5. My first memories are when I was 4. You know, so it's kind of like that memory is vivid. Like I can walk through the whole scenario in my mind.
Did you go to therapy for that specifically ever? Or?
No one knew about it.
Okay.
I didn't share it with my family
more recently
because I didn't know.
Right. Is that something you opened up about when you went to
this workshop?
Okay.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence training.
There
Because there was a point in the workshop, and it wasn't until I went to like 2 different workshops. It was like a weekend and then another weekend. The second weekend was much more intense.
After you went, like the first time, were you still like, this is kind of weird?
Yeah, I was like, but I was kind of curious. I was like, this is also fascinating. Like the games,
effective, weird.
Yeah, it was like all these exercises and games. I was like, man, it just how effective it was for everyone else in the group and for me. What I was learning, I was like, it's kind of weird. And if like, yeah, you got to be open-minded to it. But I was like, wow, it actually helped on certain things when I finally was not guarded towards it. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in and try it and see what happens. So I was like just curious about the next workshop. And I went, and it was like day 3. It was even more emotional. It was like even more like crying and like, it was crazy. And there was a point where the facilitator of this workshop, the trainer, was like, okay, we have gone through everything in your past. We have addressed it. We have talked about it, explored it in all these different scenarios and situations. In one-on-one partners and small group exercises, all these different things. He goes, now we're moving forward towards your future. And if there's anything you have not addressed towards your past, with parents, mom and dad, like relationships, anything, now is the time or forever hold your peace type of situation. It was like, the line has been drawn.
Right.
Your past, we're going to leave in your past. But if you haven't addressed something, now's the time. And so I'm sitting there, and there's maybe like 35 of us in the group at this time. I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know, my brother being in prison, my parents going through divorce, like being bullied, being picked last. I was like going through all these scenarios. I was like, that time I was raped. And I was like, oh wait, why have I never talked about this in my life?
Right.
Like, I've just kind of put it off as like this thing that happened. And then I just started like trembling, and I was like, I have to, I was like, am I actually really gonna share this? I thought this would go to my grave, you know? And so I just stood up and walked in the front of the room, and I couldn't look anyone in the eyes. I was so embarrassed and just ashamed. But I just like stared down at the ground, stood in front of the whole room, and like started off, I was like when I was 5, and just told the whole story. It was the first time from start to finish I told the story. And
now you made everybody else in the room cry too, probably.
Well, everyone was just like, I think they were just kind of in shock. Because they see this like 6'4" tall, like athletic, jock-looking dude.
Yeah, I was raped. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and they're like, I think they were just in shock. Because not many men share that. Who like look like me and who, you know, whatever. And so I remember sitting down, like walking in my seat. And luckily there were 2 women on either side of me, because it was like they saved me in the moment. I sat down and it was like I just started bawling. Like I wasn't crying until I sat down, and then I couldn't control the tears. It was like I was shaking.
Yeah.
And they were just like holding me and like crying with me, and we were just like all crying, and I was like, I just need to get out of here. And I ran out of the room. And it was probably one of the most beautiful things that ever happened to me at this moment. I'm out, it was in like a hotel conference room. I go outside just to get some air, put my head against the wall outside, and just like kind of ashamed, and like head like this, like looking into the wall, crying. And it was probably one of the most beautiful experiences I ever had, where just a line of men came and like hugged me and embraced me and like looked me in the eyes and told me like their story. Like some of them had been sexually abused as well. And they were like, I've never told anyone, so what you did for me is unbelievable. And it showed me like, wow, the power of actually being real, being vulnerable, what you can create in terms of relationships with other people when you actually reveal yourself. And I'm not saying we need to like share our biggest sob stories all the time and like cry every day or whatever, but just having an honest conversation with people sometimes when it's appropriate,
right,
and timing, and you know, how powerful that is to build deeper, more intimate relationships. It's so effective in not having to look perfect all the time, but being like open about our insecurities or our fears or our concerns, as opposed to being like, I'm a perfect human being. It's exhausting being perfect, right. You know? So that really showed me like, wow, my whole life I've tried to like show this perfect persona, but I don't need to anymore. It gave me permission to be like human being.
Yeah.
And it's been transformative since then. You know, sharing it with my friends one-on-one, family members one-on-one, the relationships I've had are just so much stronger and deeper connected. Because as I started to reveal, they started to reveal and felt comfortable sharing things that I never knew about them.
Yeah.
And this level of trust and intimacy and connection was just so strong, so much stronger because of that. So it showed me that actually vulnerability, again, at the right timing and everything like that,
right,
being discerning about who you're talking about it with, can actually make you so much more powerful than ever before. So if you want to gain power and make more money and get the girl, like if you want those shiny things, like actually be real and be vulnerable.
Right. That makes sense. You think if you didn't go through some of that, that you would, you know, that you wouldn't be in the spot that you're in now, or you're already kind of heading down this path?
If I hadn't been through all the stuff,
like through the books and through the podcasts and stuff like that. Like when did you go to that workshop and kind of?
That was right after I launched my podcast. Within like the first 6 to 9 months.
So then it was very important to a lot of what's happening right now.
It was so important. It transformed the trajectory of like my business and my energy. And it's so funny because so many people started listening, who were listening to my podcast before I went to this workshop. Within a few weeks after this workshop, I just started to see people differently and have a level of empathy and understanding, and my listening was different. My questions were more thoughtful, I think, and intentional.
Yeah.
And I was just getting random messages from people saying, did something change? Like, your podcast is a little different. It's like, it's better. You know, not that I didn't like it before, but just your energy is different. And I was like, yeah, this workshop like opened me up to just seeing things differently. You know, it didn't make me, you know, I still have a lot of flaws and I'm not perfect, but it allowed me to, I think, understand and have empathy from others differently as well. And so I don't think I would have, you know, my book wouldn't have been as well. I definitely don't think I'd hit the New York Times bestseller list. I don't think I'd be able to do this book. Like all the projects I've been doing, I wouldn't be as effective if I didn't go through this experience. No way.
What's greatness mean to you?
Discovering the unique gifts and talents that we have, using them to pursue our dreams throughout our life, and making the maximum impact on people around us in that pursuit.
Very cool. That's it, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. It's great.
That was just a great episode. The last 15, 20 minutes just killed me. Anyway, shout out to all of our sponsors. 8Man Apparel at 8manstrong.com, bodybuilding.com for all your supplement needs, Compex USA for cutting-edge muscle stim machines. Get an additional 28% off when you use the code PowerCast on all but the lowest price model. Reebok.com, home of the legacy lifting shoe. Increase your bench at howmuchyoubench.net. Get 15% off slingshots with the code PowerCast. Power, the only strength magazine available in both digital and print at thepowermagazine.com. And Precision Nutrition. Get the free course especially for our listeners at get.pn/PowerCast. That's get.pn/PowerCast. I'm at the Jim McDonald on all the social media. Follow the show on Instagram. We are at Mark Bell's PowerCast. You can also find us on Facebook at The PowerCast and on Insta and Twitter at STJimSack.